Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm one of the designers of 13 Days, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The game is a medium complexity, two-player game that plays in 45 minutes. I'm here to teach you how to play the game, but first let me introduce the setting.
It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union.
The Cuban Missile Crisis is probably the single point in time where humanity came closest to a global nuclear war. The conflict lasted 13 days in October 1962. During these tense days, President Kennedy and Kruschev went back and forth in a high-stakes game of superpower showdown. Both superpowers pushed their agendas as far as they could, while not pushing so hard as to trigger a global nuclear war. This balancing act of conflicting forces is exactly the experience we want to give you in 13 days. Before proceeding to the rules, you need to know the components. Inside the box of 13 days, you will find one game board laid out in the middle of the table. US player sits at the western end, USSR at the eastern end. There are 39 strategy cards. Shuffle the deck and place them here. The 13 hidden agendas are also shuffled and placed next to the strategy cards. There is one personal letter. The US player starts with the letter, so place it face up on his side of the table. Each player starts the game with 17 influence cubes. Give the blue cubes to the US, the red to the USSR. 2 of each color cube starts on the board, as indicated here. And here. Each player is also handed 3 flag counters that will come in use later. Then you place the 6 DEFCON markers on the DEFCON track where indicated. Blue belongs to the US and red to the USSR. Finally, the prestige marker goes on the prestige track and the round marker on the round track. And those were all the components for 13 days set up for play. Now let's dive into the rules. One player takes the role of President Kennedy, the other President Kruschev. The winner is the player that emerges from a crisis with the most prestige. There are 2 basic ways in which prestige can be earned. The first is by dominating 9 different battlegrounds across the global arena, such as Berlin or Cuba. The second is to dominate the 3 different DEFCON tracks: military, political, and world opinion. Yet, to win a game of 13 days, you must first avoid losing it. You lose immediately if any of your DEFCON markers finishes a round in the DEFCON 1 area, or if all 3 of your DEFCON markers finish a round in the DEFCON 2 area. If either of these happens, you have pushed the confrontation so far that it triggers a global nuclear war. History will remember you as the aggressor, and you lose the game immediately, regardless of the score. Now, let's take a closer look at how the game is structured. The game is divided into 3 rounds total. Each round is then divided into 7 phases. In the first phase, all DEFCON markers are simply escalated 1 step. In the second phase, the agenda cards are shuffled. Then each player draws 3 cards. Mark the agendas you drew by placing your flag counters on corresponding battlegrounds or DEFCON tracks. Finally, you secretly pick a single agenda to score at the end of the round. Tuck it beneath the board. The leftover agenda cards are returned to the deck, still face down. Meanwhile, your opponent does the same. This scoring method ensures that the following round becomes part of a bluffing game, where some, but not all, information is available. The third phase contains the bread and butter of the gameplay. Each player draws 5 strategy cards and looks at them. Then the player who's trailing on prestige decides who has the initiative and therefore must play the first card. Usually playing last is a wise choice, but there are exceptions. If players are tied on prestige, the USSR decides initiative. This is always the case in the first round. Once initiative has been decided, it is time to play your first strategy card. Pick one from your hand and place it in front of you, face up. Each card can be played in one of two different ways, either for command or as an event. If you played this card for command, pick a single battleground on the board and either place or remove as many of your own influence as shown on the card. This card allows up to 3 cubes, though you're always allowed to spend fewer cubes than indicated. It's important to remember that you can never have more than 5 of your own influence cubes on a single battleground. Remember that one of the key ways to earn prestige is by dominating battlegrounds. This makes the command action very useful. However, each battleground is also linked to a specific DEFCON track as indicated by both the color and the icon. Italy is a green battleground connected to the political DEFCON track. When you play a command action and decide to place influence, the DEFCON track escalates. If you remove influence, the track deflates. The actual steps moved up or down the DEFCON track is 1 less than the total cubes used for the command action. If 1 cube is placed, nothing happens. If 2 cubes are placed, the track escalates 1 step. 3 cubes escalates 2 steps. The same formula applies to removing cubes, except the DEFCON track deflates. Being ahead on the DEFCON track is the other main way to earn prestige. However, it also holds the risk of losing you the game. But remember that a card can also be played as an event. All 39 strategy cards in the game come with their own unique event, and each event may allow you to break some of the rules I just explained for command. This specific event here allows you to place 1 influence cube in 3 different battlegrounds. The same card played for command can only ever influence a single battleground. The variety of events are too large to cover in this video. You'll have to play the game yourself to discover all of them. You will also notice the DEFCON icon on the side of the card. It tells you if the event affects the DEFCON track or not. In this case it doesn't, but when cards do, they follow the same formula as explained for command. Strategy cards also have one of 3 alignments. There are 13 US, 13 USSR and 13 neutral UN cards. When you play a card with your own alignment or one of the UN cards, you may decide to play it for the command or the event, as just explained. Your opponent's cards, however, may only be played for command. You simply cannot choose to activate the event. More importantly, before executing your command action, you must hand the card to your opponent, who then decides if he wants to activate the event. Once he has decided and possibly played the event, you receive the card back and may then play your command action as normal. Now is a good time to introduce the personal letter that was given to the US player during setup. With this UN card, you could place or remove up to 4 influence cubes if boosted by the personal letter. After playing the personal letter, hand the card over to your opponent. Now he may use it from his next turn onwards. Players take turns playing 1 strategy card at a time until they have both played 4 cards and hold 1 leftover card in their hand. This is where the 4th phase begins. The leftover card represents the resources you have dedicated to building up alliances. Tuck it beneath the game board here, but don't show it to your opponent. At the end of the game, all cards from the stack are tallied up, and whoever has the most influence of their own alignment gains 2 prestige. The 5th phase allows you to manipulate the game state right before scoring. This can be done if you dominate one of the 3 world opinion battlegrounds. Each battleground has a unique ability. The UN battleground allows you to claim the personal letter from your opponent. The television battleground allows you to escalate or deflate one of your own DEFCON tracks. And the Alliances battleground allows you to draw the top card from the strategy deck and then decide to add it to the Aftermath stack, or simply discard it face up. After having used the world opinion to manipulate the game board, the 6th phase begins. The agenda cards are revealed, and this is where your cunning plan comes to fruition. Both players flip their agenda cards and show what is to be scored for the round. In this case, it's the Italian battleground and the military def contract. For a battleground, score the difference in influence cubes to the player who has the most influence there. Then add any modifiers. For DEFCON tracks, you first escalate all DEFCON markers in the specific DEFCON 2 area as single step. Then score the difference in steps, adding a modifier of 1. The prestige is awarded to the player that is most escalated. All scoring cards are resolved simultaneously, and the maximum possible score at the end of the phase is 5 prestige to either side. More than that is wasted. Before proceeding to the next phase, you check to see if any players triggered global nuclear war and ended the game. In the 7th and final phase, you advance the round marker and proceed to the next round. If this was the 3rd round, you tally up the aftermath pile and award the 2 prestige. After doing that, the winner is the player who has the most prestige. In case of a tie, the player holding the personal letter is the winner. And that's how to play 13 days. Thank you for watching and enjoy the game.